Okay, so we're online. Okay, so as we were saying, we are continuing in Derech Hashem, but with an added angle to understand more and appreciate and utilize properly the potential that is inherent in the weeks of Sfirat HaOmer. Okay, essentially, Sfirat HaOmer is basically recounting from leaving Mitzrayim, right? We left Egypt, meaning that physically our bodies are out of there, but we're not yet emotionally and intellectually ready to enter into the land of Israel. So along that path, we have to first receive and accept willingly and wholeheartedly the Torah, which is going to be revealed at the end of Sfirat Omer on Shavuot. And in order to do that, so Chazal teach us, the Torah teaches us that they're supposed to count 7 weeks. Okay, so what is the purpose of this counting and why are we counting? And on the one hand, externally, we count down to like an important event, like if a person gets engaged, or in a negative sense, they're in jail and they know they have a certain amount of time until they're free, right? Free from being single, and you could suddenly start, coming together, or free to get out of jail. So there's a thing, you count down the days. Like if you know on the 50th day it's going to happen, so you, through anticipation, you're counting towards that. But more than that, Chassidut teaches that we're not just counting the days out of anticipation, but we're slowly preparing ourselves to receive what it is that we never had before. Right? Whether it's the Torah or a marriage or a new job, right? The concept of I want to first spend 7 weeks to remove any obstacles that potentially may disturb or interfere with this new thing that I'm trying to bring into my life. So we've spoken about this in a few different contexts, but as we know, our main persons, I guess, I don't know what the proper word is, our personalities are divided into 3 categories. Okay, you have your body, right? The body has urges, needs. It needs to sleep, it needs to eat, needs to be clean, needs to be warm, etc. And then above that, you have, as you climb the ladder of spirituality, you have the heart. Okay, the heart has the ability to feel, to have emotions. It's also the source of our speech, right? As Rabbi Nachman explains that the reason why our breath is warm is because it's coming from the heart, right? The heart is the center of warmth from our body. As opposed to the brains, the Tanya calls the brain cold, right? It's like chilled water, as opposed to the heart, which is more fire. Because the brain only works if you don't get distracted by the fire, right? If you get all excited or angry or depressed or whatever it happens to be, it clouds your thoughts. So the process of working on ourselves, as you mentioned many times in previous classes, that there's something called avodah, right? That we have something called avodah, which doesn't mean work. It means to prepare yourself to be a pure vessel to be able to shine Hashem's light out into the world, right? That nothing here should interfere with Hashem's light, right? Hashem is constantly speaking to us, constantly trying to illuminate us. And as we're going to see today, that Sfirat Omer is the preparation to make sure that there's no interference, so that when we hear Hashem's Torah on Shavuot, we actually receive it purely and not distracted or distorted based on our own inner struggles or feelings, or lack of feelings. So it's a process that we begin with our bodies. That's why at the end of last week's parasha, right, we read the parasha of Mitzorah, right, about the leper. Right, and all of the commentaries explain that the concept of leper, first of all, it's not a physical disease. It's not like, if somebody gets sick. It's a something that shows up on their skin, because the skin symbolizes how I relate to the outside world. Right, the skin is your most external part of your body. Right, you have the inner organs and you have the external organs. So if your inner world is not functioning properly, right, if your emotions are not where they need to be, which leads to being jealous of people, speaking lashon hara, all those things which Chazal teaches the trigger, so to speak, of Mitzorah. Right, that's why the punishment is that he has to separate himself from humanity, right, to be alone, to realize that whatever troubles he's attributing to others is actually himself. Right, as Rabbi the Baal Shem Tov teaches, which is one of the main and first chidushim, like the new revelations of Chassidut. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that every time you see something wrong in somebody else, it's because it's a reflection of yourself. Right? Every single human being in this world is a mirror. If I see something ugly in somebody, it's because I think I'm ugly, right? There's a story about, I think it was Rabbi Meir, one of the rabbis in the Mishnah. He was walking with Eliyahu Navi, interestingly, right? They used to be able to conjure up the souls of the tzaddikim. And they were walking in an alleyway, like behind the stores. You know, like in Machane Yehuda, in the Shuk. If you go behind the stores, that's where they throw out all the garbage, and it really stinks. And they were walking, in the alleyway behind the Shuk. And this man came out to throw garbage, right, from one of the restaurants or the stores there. And the rabbi, I'm not sure if it was Rabbi Meir, so I don't want to misquote, but so the rabbi, closed his nose, and he's like, whoa, this is really disgusting. And Eliyahu Navi smelled, and he says, wow, this is one of the most beautiful smells I've ever smelled. He says, what are you talking about? He says, no, I smell people's deeds, not their externals.
What if it's not in a person, but it's in a thing, like in the world, like you're just negative attitude? It's so gross outside, it's cold, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that too.
Is something wrong in me also? Like same thing?
I mean, it depends. It's not necessarily wrong. And again, they don't use the term wrong too loosely, yeah. But it could also be a sense of okay, so I need to dress warmer. I mean, somebody say, oh, I hate the winter, right? Or I can't stand it when it rains, right? So then you're focusing on how it affects you in a negative way, right? But then you could have switched the note, without rain, we'd have no flowers, we'd have no trees, we'd have no fruit, we'd have no food. We would all die eventually. Right?
What's rain without cold? No purpose to it.
Cold actually helps the trees go to sleep in the winter so that they could be stronger in the spring. Otherwise, they would keep growing and growing, and they wouldn't be able to be strong enough. Except for, that's why it's so unique about the etrog. That's why etrog is so special, because it grows all year long. It never goes to sleep. It's able to grow in the day, in the night, in the heat, in the cold. But so again, that's a personal preferences. If you can't stand a certain color, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just you have to understand and try to go to the deeper significance of what does this mean for me. Okay, but here we're speaking more specifically about preparing ourselves to be a vessel to receive and accept Hashem. Also, it does kind of connect, because Hashem created cold also. Right? So if we can't accept the cold, so then part of us is not connected to Hashem properly. To learn how to appreciate the cold and just dress up warmer or stay indoors, whatever. There's different ways to deal with it. Okay, so we start again from the bottom up. Right, as we know that there's a ladder, right? The soul that Hashem gave us is like a ladder, or in some psukim actually it's compared to a rope that you climb. Right? It's easier to climb a ladder than a rope. But we need to realize what level that we're on, and then try to strive to get to the next level. Okay, so the Sfirat Omer teaches us that there are 49 levels of the heart, which we'll get to soon. But before we get to the heart, we have to first actually leave Mitzrayim. If you're still stuck in Mitzrayim, that means your body is still your God, your guide, your king. Okay, because Paro is basically the Yetzer Hara telling you to focus on your body. And that's actually some of the complaints they had when they were leaving Egypt. They're like, whoa, we missed the fish. We missed all the different things, the food that we had in Egypt. All we have here is man. They started getting annoyed. So that means they were still physically trapped in Egypt. A lot of people make aliyah, but they're still in whatever country they came from. They missed, the things they had there, the luxuries, the comforts. So that's the Mitzrayim level, which is the body. So after we managed to leave, hopefully we managed to leave, on Pesach, right? We're satisfied by eating matzah instead of, warm croissants and all this, challah and yummy things. Just basically crackers without taste. To teach us that we need to leave Mitzrayim behind. That doesn't mean we can't eat other things, but specifically bread satisfies the stomach more directly than matzah. Matzah is like survival mode. You eat to live, you need calories. Okay, so we left Mitzrayim, and now we're on the journey towards Eretz Yisrael. Okay, but there's a lot of steps in between. Okay, the first step is getting to Har Sinai. The next step is receiving the Torah at Har Sinai. And then a step after that was supposed to be entering the land of Israel, but then the whole thing happened with the golden calf, and then the whole thing happened with the spies coming back with a false report. They were literally supposed to enter the land right after receiving the Torah. To spend a few days just reviewing it, and then going to Yisrael. Okay, so we see obviously there's a lot of work to be done. And at the end of last week's parasha, there's a verse in the book of Vayikra, right, chapter 15, verse 31. Okay, where it teaches what is the mission of the Kohanim. Is he zartem et bnei Yisrael mitum atam.
Sorry, what page is it?
I'm in Vayikra.
Oh, you're not in
I'm just reading a pasuk, and then we're going to soon...
What is it, chapter?
Chapter 15. It's in the end of last week's parsha. Yeah, I'm just reading one pasuk. V'hi zartem, which means to separate. Right? To separate Bnei Israel from their tum'ah. Okay, tum'ah is a state of the opposite of creativity. Right? The inability to receive. And a person is tameh, right, which usually translated as impure. What does it mean to be impure? That there's something inside that is interfering with our ability to receive properly. And as we saw, like, the past, all the different verses in the parashiot that we read last week were to separate from all kinds of things that cause impurity. Okay, so the Kohanim's job is to teach the people, right, because the Kohanim are like the sages, at least back in the olden days, to separate Yisrael from their tum'ah, v'lo yamutu betum'atam, because God forbid they should die while they're in a state of tum'ah. Okay, to be dead means to not be attached to Hashem. As the Chazal explain, that the Risha'im, people that are so self-centered when they're alive, even if they're being productive and doing things, they're considered dead because they're not attached to Hashem. Hashem is the only true life, and life is supposed to be infinite. And if somebody is not trying to connect to the infinite life of Hashem, so they're considered dead. And the source of Tumah, the highest source of Tumah actually is a dead body. Right? A dead body is the highest source of Tumah. If, God forbid, you walk into a house and there's a dead body in there, you become Tameh, even without touching it. Right? Most other Tumahs are only extracted if you actually touch something or carry something. But essentially, so Tum'ah is the result of no more life. Right? And the same thing happens with with the monthly cycle of women when they have an experience of not being able to bear a child because they didn't, whatever happened, when the blood comes out, that's a sign again of the opposite of life. But what the Kohanim are asked to ensure is to make sure that they're not betam'am et mishkani asher betocham. Okay, because basically, as we learned back in Parshat Terumah, right, in the book of Shemot, that Hashem wants us to create ourselves to become a mishkan, right, a resting place for Him. Right, some secular people, use that for exercise and stuff. Like my body is a temple, right, to keep it pure. We take it to the next level. My body is a place where Hashem wants to shine Himself through into the world. Right, as my brother taught me before I got married, as we're going to learn very soon, that we have the 7 openings in our face. Right, that's not just for receiving information, also for giving. Mm-hmm. Right, there's light that's shooting out through your eyes, out of your ears, your nose, your mouth. And if we abuse them or not use them properly, so then you're actually pushing Hashem's presence out of the world. Okay, so that was the verse I wanted to quote, that to make sure that we do not defile the temple that Hashem created within us. Okay, it says, Mishkani asher bitocham. Right, there's a temple within each human being, and we have to make sure that we don't defile it. So, Sfirat HaOmer then is to look inside ourselves and to also notice how we react to things during these 7 weeks, to see what is interfering with Hashem's light shining through us into the world. Right, the way we speak, the way we hear, the way that we see. Because if we're trying to get to the level of seichel, of intellect, which is represented by Har Sinai, so you have to first purify the heart. First the body, right? Leaving Egypt, purify the body. Make sure you only eat kosher. Make sure that you don't, steal. Make sure you don't hit people. Like this, use your body properly, and then to work on what's called the midot. Okay, the midot are in the heart. Midah literally means measure. Right? Like, how do we measure our experiences? Like, how do we translate the things that happen to us, the things that we see, the things that we hear? Right? We have we have 7 midot according to the Kabbalah, which parallel the 7 lower sfirot. Okay, if I say anything that is new then feel free to ask. Because we're here to try to understand things. If I'm using terms they don't understand, then please pipe in. Okay, so we have within the world of midot, which is again our emotional abilities, there are 7 different kinds, and they parallel, according to the Kabbalah, the 7 openings in our face. Okay, we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and a mouth. That makes 7. The eyes parallel the right hand of the sfirot, which is reaching out to others, right? Which are the sfirot of chesed and netzach, which is to focus on other people's needs and to be available to try to help them. Okay, that's why Hashem gave us eyes. Right? That's ayin tova means always look for the good in others to see how you can help them and promote them. Notice what's missing. That was the trait of Avraham Avinu. He always looked to see what people were lacking so that he can actually help them achieve what it is that they were looking for. And that's why the inner dimension of chesed is called ahava. Okay, true love means that I care to help you achieve your goals, not my goals. I don't care how you make me feel. That's irrelevant. I'm thinking about you, and I want to see what I could do to help. And netzach symbolizes the right leg, which is the ability to take the step forward, to help people move forward, to give them self-confidence, etc., etc. The left sfirot, which are gevura and hod, parallel the ears. Okay, to be able to listen carefully to what other people are saying, to listen to the messages that Hashem is sending to you, and to step up, so to speak, against things that are injustice, or like if you hear somebody insulting somebody, to be able to speak up and do the right thing. Then you have the middle ones, which are Tiferet and Yesod, which parallel the nose. Okay, breathing. Right, to be able to always stay calm, because the inner dimension of Tiferet is harmony and rachamim, right, to have mercy on people. And the inner dimension of Yesod is peace, shalom, right, to be able to not get angry and to not yell at people, because then eventually you get to the mouth, which is malchut, which reveals to the outside world your true inner state. Right, you could tell by when somebody talks, if they're angry, if they're happy, if they're also like to take deep breaths. So we are now in the Sferet Omer, specifically in the week of Tiferet. Okay, so we already missed the first 2 weeks. Hopefully you did some kind of work over there. During the first week, we're supposed to notice when and where is it hard for us to share with others. Right, during the month of the week of Chesed. During the month of Gevura, where is it hard for me to hold back? You lash out and you do things, or you don't say no to like your inner desires, like eating when you're not hungry or whatever it happens to be. And then the second week is the focus now on Tiferet, which is your breathing and your interpretation of your interactions with people. Right, so today is the 19th day of the Omer, right, which is the Netzach, I think, right? No, Hod of Tiferet. Okay, so Hod, again, if you want, there's a book I saw on one of the shelves over here called Sfiros. It's an orange book, I believe. We'll find it after class, but it's very helpful to have it sitting. Oh, you found it. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so he goes through. This is a rabbi from originally from Boston, I think, but he lives now. No, I don't need it. Just leave it on the table for you guys. Yeah, to be able to just have access to it. Rabbi Yaakov Haber lives now in Beit Shemesh. He has a community there, and he spent like many years with his chavruta to like go through all the different sources, because usually in what's called the Litvish world, they don't study Sfirot and Kabbalah. But for some reason he got attracted to it and he delved into it and made it available, easy access to English speakers. First explains what the different Sfirot are, and then each aspect of the Sfirah, because today, for example, it's called Hod Shebet Tiferet. The whole week is the week of Tiferet, where the focus is always on harmony. To be careful how you breathe, right? When somebody says something to you and you notice like something triggers you, so to take a deep breath, right? There's something they also teach in emotional psychology, that to always count to 10 before you react to somebody's comment. Right? If you react immediately, it's because you didn't take a deep breath. Right? So your breath is able to control what's going to then come out of your mouth. Okay, so you got to be careful with that. So that's this week, and it's very, very perfectly aligned with last week's parsha of Mitzorah. abusing the power of speech. Okay, so we almost finished introduction. Again, so to look into the details of each sphera and each day is very helpful. He gives practical exercises of how to practice whatever today is supposed to help you cleanse, to make sure it doesn't interfere with the receiving of the Torah. Okay, so again, the 7 openings in our mouth, in our face, which parallel the 7 midot, they have basically 2 directions. Right, it's how you receive information, and then how you project something outwards onto others. Okay, like when you look at somebody and you see something not nice, the Baal Shem Tov and also the Rabbi from Lubavitch was very, very strong about repeating this concept that first of all, look at yourself. Like, why do you think that's ugly or wrong? Right, because he says that the only reason why you notice something wrong in others is either because you have it in yourself and you've been avoiding it, so you're projecting it onto them. It's like, oh, they have problems, I'm perfect. Or it's because you have the power to try to help them. And he says, if you can't, then at least you could pray for them. Okay, so if you pray for somebody, you notice somebody has a problem, you don't know how to help them, so pray for them. Hashem lets us see what our brothers and sisters need so that we can ask Hashem to help them. And Rabbi Nachman says that actually every time you look at somebody in a positive light, you're actually giving them a boost of inspiration, whether they know it or not. Remember, there's a story about this old man that used to live in Machane Yehuda, in the shuk, the outdoor shuk, in Yerushalayim, on the 3rd floor. He had a little porch, and he would go out every Friday and just look down at the people shopping, and just shower them with blessings. Like, we just look, oh, this person looks like he needs money. This person looks sick. They're hobbling. This person looks like they're arguing. Oh, he would just stand there. Only after he died, his family told at the Shiva that that was his practice every Friday. Like, if you looked up, you would see him, and nobody looked up. They were walking around shopping or, haggling with the storekeepers. He would just look at people and daven for them. Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
Yeah. Just look at them and send them blessings. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are what we call also the hidden tzaddikim, because nobody knows they're doing that. They're people that sit on the bus. It looks like they're just, spacing out, but they're actually blessing people. Remember, after I heard that story, I tried practicing that. I would sit on the bus and look outside, just as you drive by people, so ooh.
Good for Avat Yisrael.
Yeah, mamash, just because then you're only looking for good. You're looking for what's missing. That's the Avraham Avinu aspect. Okay, that's the tikkun of the eyes. So again, we receive information, and we need to notice how it affects us. Right, that's the Sfirat Omer aspect, that somebody said something and I got insulted. I saw somebody do something and I felt disgusted. Whatever happens to be. Okay, so all of those negative attributes come from the Yetzer Hara. Okay, we need to cleanse that, get it out of the way before Shavuot. And then to practice the opposite, which is to project goodness and kindness out of our 7 holes in our face, to be able to help others. Okay, so again, just to summarize, so this week is the week of Tiferet, which is harmony. So to try to avoid at all costs any disagreements or conflicts, or to notice also your inner conflicts and disagreements, to try to iron them out. Right, in specific ways of how that parallels each day, because there's only a couple of days left. You could look in this book, the Sfiros. I recommend just leaving it on the table the whole week, so whoever wants could look at it.
There's only a couple of days
of this week of Tiferet.
Oh.
Yeah. No, today we're only 19. We still have time till the end. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so on that note, we're going to now open the Derech Hashem to continue where we were before, but I'll give a quick review for people that weren't here before. We're going to begin on page 112. Let's make sure that's correct. Yes, we got to 112. Yeah, the top of the page. Right, or you can follow along in the English on page 113. But it's to review what we learned before in this chapter. This chapter is teaching about what's called hashgacha ishit. Okay, we learned that there's a concept called hashgacha, which is how Hashem oversees and intervenes in our lives. Okay, there's something called hashgacha klalit, which is that Hashem is maintaining the world to make sure that electricity flows, that the trees don't just like disappear, that the floor stays, solid so we can walk on it. The animals can continue to live. Right, so that's more the preservation of nature, which also includes, which it doesn't include the humans. Okay, so humans is already called hashgacha pratit. Hashgacha pratit is how much we are aligned with the Torah. Okay, because there are laws of nature, which is hashgacha klalit, and there are laws of humanity, or in a deeper level, spirituality, which is revealed through the Torah. What are the spiritual laws? Like, for example, don't steal. Right? Animals steal, but they're not commanded not to. Right? Or don't, wake up people in the middle of the night. Okay? Dogs and donkeys have no problem doing that. Don't, etc., whatever happens to be. So there are spiritual laws that teach us how to raise ourselves above our animal nature. Right? Don't touch something if it's not yours. Don't yell at somebody just because they did something that was uncomfortable to you. So hashgacha pratit then sends us different events and occurrences in our lives based on how much we are either connected to or disconnected from the Torah. But then there's something even deeper or beyond, which is called hashgacha ishit, and that's what we're learning in this chapter. Hashgacha ishit is personal hashgacha. Okay, because hashgacha pratit covers all of humanity. Hashgacha ishit is each unique individual. As the Ramchal explains, that every single person was created in this world with a specific assignment and responsibility. Okay, separate from whether you keep the Torah or not, there's a mission why you're here. Right? Our mission is not just to keep the Torah. The Torah comes to help to ensure that we actually stick to our mission and are able to accomplish it. Because if a person isn't keeping the Torah, so a lot of their energies are being given to the Yetzer Hara side, then you don't have the energy necessary to do what it is that you need to do. Right? For example, as the Rambam explains, that if you eat too much, you're prone to be more angry at people. Right? If you overeat, right? Because it gives you like a sense of that you're just never satisfied. Even when you are satisfied, you keep eating, that means you're trying to take more than you're trying to give. That also brings up this whole, in the Musar, they say that, make sure you always leave a little bit of food left over on the side of your plate. Don't just finish everything. And they say, so somebody asks me, isn't that called wasting food? I was like, no, that's preserving your ability to eat properly. Right? So it's not called a waste. Just like, when you burn the chametz. Well, how could you burn chametz? You're wasting it. Or like when we had at the Seder, you pour out, the drops of wine, during the plagues. Or in Havdalah, when you pour the cup and it overflows. So that's not called wasting, that's called actually fixing abuse, right? Because it's not exactly abuse. You're using it for the proper reasons, but in a different way. It's hard to really explain it, but it's not called waste if it's done with purpose and intent to make things better. Okay, so every individual then, so we have, as we saw before, we need to work on our bodies, and the midot, so that, as the Rizal explains, the thoughts that flow into your head could either be a blessing or a curse. Right? Hashem is constantly talking to us. So if we are not aligned within ourselves, so then we're going to interpret those thoughts into something either physical or emotional, instead of the light of Hashem that's trying to shine into us. Right, as we say every morning in the Shacharit service, Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam. Right, Baruch Omer ve'oseh. Right, that Hashem is constantly speaking the world into existence, and He's constantly speaking to us. So, in order for us to be able to hear His voice, which actually that's what prophecy is, they could actually hear literally Hashem is talking to you specifically as an individual, not just in general. Like through nature, you could appreciate Hashem through nature, but to actually hear His unique voice coming to you, right? Like Moshe Rabbeinu heard a bush talking to him. I see bushes all the time. I don't hear anything, right? So to be able to actually hear Hashem's voice coming through nature and beyond is only possible if you first cleanse out your body and your heart and your mind from anything that is not drawing you closer to Hashem.
When I used to be full-time, always shepherding, I was walking once. I would do this a lot sometimes. I would just walk and I'd see bushes and I was like, okay, Hashem, listen. When's the bush talking? I'm waiting. It never talked. Let me tell you. I was listening. It doesn't talk.
Yeah,
that's
you can also do the same thing with all the donkeys, in Bad Ayin. Come on.
I know, I'm always telling them, like, goats, tell me what you have.
Yeah, so Arizal actually also Shlomo HaMelech and a lot of the tzaddikim, they actually understood the language of the animals and of the grass and the trees and even fire. So the Arizal would watch the flickering of the flame and understand what it was saying.
Also, like, what's his name? Maybe it was David HaMelech who wrote the book about all the animals' songs because he understood their language.
I mean, most of, you're talking about Pirkei Shira? It's verse. Most of them are verses from Tehillim, but some are also from Tanakh, so it's not all from him. But definitely, she said that he used to wake up at midnight every night. He used to have a harp hanging over his bed, and says that at midnight the wind changes direction, and it would blow through the harp. You put it exactly at its right angle, and it would play music and wake him up, and then he would write songs. That's what he did. You wake up in the middle of the night. That's why we have today also, it's called Tikkun Chatzot. You wake up at midnight and you read Tehillim. There's a specific Tehillims.
It's just for men, right?
No.
Oh, no?
Maybe even Davka for women.
I thought it's
Tikkun
just for
Rachel
men.
Everyone's correct. Actually, they're called Tikkun Rachel and Tikkun Leah. So it's
Yes.
even more appropriate. That's yeah. Right. Doesn't mean you have to, but you're allowed to. Right. Again. Because it's interesting. I forget the exact timing. But it says that Hashem causes certain things to happen in the middle of the night at different changes of the what's called the watches. Right? There's like the 3 sections of the night that the angels change watch. Okay, we're not going to get into that right now. It's a little bit confusing. But in any case, one of them is when the baby wakes up to nurse in the middle of the night. All right, to wake up the mother so that she has time to now, I'm awake. Okay, might as well say some Tehillim or something. All right, so then you have the donkey, then you have the rooster. Like there's different animals that are trained at specific times of the night. And if you notice, like all of a sudden, sometimes like in the valley down below, you hear like all the wild dogs all together, like in the middle of the night.
When does the donkey's trained?
What's a donkey's strength?
No, trained. Like what do they wake up us? What do they wake us up for?
I'm not sure. I'm just like quoting something that I didn't really look into it so much yet.
I don't know if they yell at night, donkey?
They yell at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're loud.
They're very loud.
Yeah. Okay. In any case, so this again to summarize what we learned the last class that we had before Pesach. He says, imagine you have a kingdom, and the king has, everything that all of his people need. Right? He takes care of them. As the word melech indicates, that the job of a king, especially a Jewish king, is to first of all provide all the physical needs of his people. To make sure that's what taxes are for, to make sure that they have streets, that they have food, that et cetera, et cetera. The second thing is to protect them from enemies. Right? That's why there's an army. And the third thing is to give them a culture, to give them a meaning, and to give them guidance. Because the word melech comes from the word lech, which means to go. Right? Molich means the guide, the one who is helping his people move forward. So I'm reading now just the end of the previous paragraph on the bottom of page 110. You have all of the different people that live in the kingdom, and they all listen to the king's orders. Okay, and he divides up all the different tasks that need to be done to make sure that the kingdom is running smoothly amongst all of his servants, right? All of his people that live in his kingdom. Okay, so every single person has their own specific task and mission that only they can do. Because otherwise, why do you need so many people? Let us create one tzaddik, let him fix the world, and move on. So everybody's obligation then is to complete the mission they were created for. Okay, and we learned also before that it's very, very difficult to discover your mission if you're allowing Paro to guide you. Right? Paro again is the Yetzer Hara. Right? If you're not following the Torah, so then whenever you get like an idea in your head, like, I'm going to go do this. Okay, but that might not be your mission at all. It's just a distraction. Right? Paro, literally the word means distraction. Right? He's the master distractor. And based on how we either accomplish or fail to accomplish our assignment, our mission, Kain yigmelehu hamelech. So that's how and when Hashem actually responds to us. Whether we receive the things that we're asking for or don't receive them, they are connected more to our mission as opposed to the mitzvot. Because as we said, that there's no sachar for mitzvot in this world. Right? You don't get rewarded for mitzvot in this world. Keeping the Torah is not because, oh God, please, I want to get this new job. I'll start, keeping Shabbos again. Or please, protect my children. I'll start wearing tefillin or whatever. There's no connection. We learned about that before. We'll talk about it later in section 4 more in depth.
So that sometimes people take on like a kabbalah to do something in order for someone to get better or something like that.
To allow, so that's something else. So the idea of taking on more is because you're trying to reveal to the person that is ailing, or to you also, to be able to connect more to their true mission. Not that your mitzvah, the schar of the mitzvah, should actually help them heal. It removes the, what's it called? The interferences or the obstacles. Right? He's going to explain later. Actually, I think we learned about it before also. That when a person is more aligned with the Torah, Hashem makes life on earth easier. For example, Hashem will make sure that if somebody is trying to fulfill their mission, because keeping the Torah means I'm trying to get rid of all the things that are interfering. Right? To learn how to share more, to give tzedakah, to if you own a field, to learn all the different, you have to take off truma and maaser and pe'ah and all these different things to the poor people, in order that my greed shouldn't interfere with what I really need to accomplish. Not because I want reward for that mitzvah. Right? For example, if I'm supposed to be an amazing musician, let's say. Right? So Hashem gives me $500,000 to be able to get the best equipment possible, build a studio, and instead I'm I go to the bars, I buy a nice sports car. I wasted that money because I wasn't focused on who I really am and what I could do potentially with the gifts that Hashem gave me. So the function and the Torah of the mitzvot, because mitzvah also means to connect, right? To maintain our connection to our soul, so that our bodies don't interfere with the shefa that Hashem is giving us. So he says over here that we could actually analyze to see if things aren't going my way, it's probably because I'm not actually on the right way. Not because I'm not keeping Shabbat or I'm not whatever, because those things are separate. That's connected more to Olam Haba. Okay, which is a whole different thing, that we're preparing ourselves to become more like Hashem. That's the function of the Torah and the mitzvot. But besides that, you see people that do amazing things, and they don't keep the Torah. Right? But the thing is, though, as we learned previously, so they will have a lot of success here in this world, but they're not going to be part of Hashem's eternal plan, which is to be in Olam Haba, to really enjoy and appreciate what it means to be like Hashem and close to Hashem, as opposed to just enjoying life here, which is temporary. Okay, so then he said that there's no way that we as humans could understand how Hashem divides things up, but we could analyze ourselves, which is more the book of Mesilat Yesharim, the Path of the Just, where he talks there about how to actually use your inner voices and your inner urges to discover who you are and to learn how to overcome them until you get to the level of prophecy. Right, where you can really hear, as the Ramchal writes at the beginning, it's like every single Jew that is born, essentially all of humanity, but right now the rest of the world doesn't care enough to do it, so Hashem gave it to the Jews to make sure somebody's doing it, and we're supposed to actually share it with the world. That's what's called the light unto the nations, to be able to get to the place where every single person is a prophet. Right? It says in the days of Shlomo HaMelech, why was there so much prosperity in the land and there was peace everywhere? Is because they were literally schools for prophecy. Right? So there were about 1 million prophets just in his generation. The only ones that were written down in the books were the ones that prophesied for the future. But, for example, it says that, I think it was Shaul. Shaul sent his son to go ask Shmuel, the prophet, to help him find his lost donkeys. Right? That's because they were called seers. Also, they'd be able to see things. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, also had a little bit of that. Whenever somebody lost something, he would be able to just close his eyes and see where it was and tell them. Wow. Yeah, it was a very special man. And to the point where when he was young in school, when he was like 9, 10 years old, he wasn't allowed to answer questions because he could see the answer in the teacher's mind.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's a very special man. In any case, so that's, the Ramchal says everybody has to strive to be a prophet. If not, it says you're wasting your life. To get to that point where you can actually hear Hashem's voice, guiding you at every moment, what you need to be doing, where you need to be, and to just really experience life on a whole different level. Not just go through the days and the weeks and the months and the years, and all of a sudden you wake up one day, it was called a midlife crisis, like, what did I accomplish?
Who says that? That we should strive to be perfect?
The what?
Who says that we should strive to be perfect?
The Ramchal. Yeah, the Ramchal in Mislat Yashrim says that we all, if you're not actually maybe it might even be in Derech Hashem, we'll see, because that's in section 3. That there says we were created to be able to express Hashem's will in the world, not just His will as is revealed in the Torah. That's already written down. That's a prophecy that is available for everybody of all generations. But every
What'd you say? Said
that if you're not guiding your life to become a prophet, so then you're wasting your time.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be more or less in those words. You could change the wording to make it more. Okay, so now we're actually going to continue in the text. We have 10 minutes left of class, so we could finish this paragraph. Okay, we're on page 112 in paragraph 2, chapter 3 of section 2 in Derech Hashem. V'hinei b'hiyot ininei ha'olam kulam nimshachim v'ne'etakim b'shtalshalut minyan le'inyan. As we mentioned previously in the earlier chapters, that everything that we see, hear, or experience here in this world is simply a photocopy of what's happening in the invisible spiritual realm. Okay, this he described it as if there's like a giant projector, right, that is shining light. And when the light hits something, then you can see what's in the light. Right? That's how light works. Right? Without light, this room, you won't be able to see anything. Okay, so the light allows for us to see. So the light is being projected from the Sfirot in the upper realms, and it arrives here on this earth, and then it hits physical matter, and you see things happening. Right? You see a physical table, you see people walking around, and not just physical objects, but also events. Okay, because events also is a reflection of the light that is shining down from the upper worlds. We already discussed this in section 1, chapter 5. So included in all of these concepts is So all the details of the challenges that we experience here in this world also are being projected upon us from the upper worlds. So okay, the root of all that we experience here in this world, whether I'm rich, whether I'm poor, whether I'm happy, whether I'm sad, the root of all these things begins in the Sfirot. Okay, that's why Kabbalah teaches, and also through Chassidut, why it's important to understand the Sfirot. Right? It says, like for example, in Tehillim, when David HaMelech expresses himself emotionally, he talks about it more as a movement of the heart. He says, my heart became uplifted. I felt like it was going up. Or my heart was pulling to the left. Or my heart sunk down. Right? So to understand like the movements of the heart is understanding the midot. Like when you hear something exciting, you feel elated. Right? It's a lifting of the heart. When you hear something scary, your heart starts to pound fast. Right? Or when you hear something sad, your heart sinks. It's like, oh, like you just lost somebody or something, or you missed an opportunity. Okay, so but the revelation in the heart, we need to realize it originates in the Sfirot. Okay, so if you just read, there's a nice book by Rabbi Ginsburg also called The Anatomy of the Soul, where he explains the different Sfirot, how they manifest in our bodies. And just to understand, right? And the Maharal goes into it much deeper, but it's hard to understand the Maharal. He's speaking in riddles, right? He doesn't use any Kabbalistic terminology. He only started writing actually when he hit 80, when he was 80 years old. Before that, he didn't write any books. He says, I'm not ready yet. I have to still study more to be able to write it in the proper way. And he wrote a lot of books from his age of 80 and on. So there also he explains how to interpret the different things that happen inside of us. For example, he says, if you have a headache, he says it's probably because you're not thinking enough Torah. Right? If your arm hurts, because you're not sharing enough. If your left arm hurts, it's because all these different things. And it says specifically that even in science, right, that one of the signs of cancer, right, because cancer means that there's something inside of you that shouldn't be there, right? God forbid that we should never experience this. there's something that became a part of your life that shouldn't have been part of your life, right? Then it's starting to eat yourself up from inside. And he says the beginning signs usually start when you feel a pain in your left arm. Okay, because the left arm symbolizes the ability to say no. Right? The right arm is about giving, and the left arm is about saying no, thank you. Right? So if a person is involved, it could come from anything. And my uncle said, like even from coffee, or even from some of them are obvious, cigarettes, different things like that. But it's not necessarily the thing that is causing it, because there are people that smoke and live till 105. There are people that drink coffee their whole life and live until also 105. Right? It's not. There's nothing inherent in the physical thing. But Hashem sends us signs. Like if you stub your toe, so the question is which toe, because each toe is one of the sefirot also. Like all these different things.
How you can find that, like in writing?
I'm not sure. That could also drive you crazy. Like if you're like, oh, I scratched my arm right here. What does that mean? Oh, this tooth hurts. Right, because the 32 teeth also parallel the 32 paths of wisdom. Yeah, bee sting, whatever it happens to be. All right, in any case.
You'll go crazy if you think about everything.
Right, just to realize that everything has a purpose, and the more purified you become, you'll actually start hearing the purpose. That's the thing. The Mekubalim didn't study to learn these things. That's called Ruach HaKodesh. Once you're in control of your body and in your heart, then Hashem sends messages to your mind. Right? Because in the olden days, they didn't have school. They didn't have books like we have today. Like now, there's thousands and thousands of books. Back then, it was just a scroll from Sinai. That's it. They just had the Chumash. Then later, they had, the Nevi'im. But they understood the letters, like what each letter meant, and why Hashem chose this word to write it in this way. And but that only comes to people who are actually working on themselves. Okay, you work on yourself, and you become literally a conduit of wisdom. Right? That's what's called a Talmid Chacham. Doesn't mean that he is a wise student. He's the student of wisdom. Right? The Talmidei Chachamim. Right? They're the ones that are able to learn from wisdom, which Rashi explains. Wisdom means you're able to receive information from outside of you. Right? Don't think you know something. Just be open to hear from what's being sent to you. Okay, so kafi ininam sham. Okay, so based on what's happening up in the spheres, in the upper spherical world, nidonim v'nigzarim lehimatzei ulitpashet ad agashmiut ba'ishim hariuyim lahem. Okay, so over there, Hashem is the one that's judging and cutting out, like a cookie cutter, like different shapes, so that they will then spread out until they appear here in a physical way in the specific person that is meant to carry that mission. And that includes all the details of every single, because again, Hashem, like one of the things that used to confuse philosophers is if that Hashem knows everything that's going to happen, then how can we say we have free will? Right? Because Hashem already knows every single decision that we're going to make before we're born. Right? Every single day, every single moment. The thing is, we don't know. Right? So we can't see the future. When we have an opportunity in front of us, depending on whether we worked on ourselves or not, am I going to say no or yes to this thing? And even though I've been saying yes to something for many, many years, I could still turn around and start saying no. Right? You could quit bad habits or connect to good habits. And Hashem already knows it because Hashem is beyond time and space. Right? You've probably seen this, that if you consider time like a straight line, we're born over here, and then we slowly go this way until we leave the world over here. So we can only see what is on the spot that we're at the moment. Okay, but Hashem looks from on top. He sees the whole thing already in advance. It's not that we don't have free will. It's that He already knows what decisions we're going to choose. We're free to choose them, but He already knows because He's obviously beyond time and space. But nonetheless, we totally have free will. We spoke about it earlier in section 1. And but free will begins with, first of all, deciding for yourself what is true and what is false. Okay, and for that we have the Torah to help clarify that. And that's also the beginning of the process in the book Mesilat Yesharim. He says if you're not studying Torah, then you don't have any hope of actually fully achieving and realizing your mission, because the Torah helps to clear out the weeds. Right? As for example, they say that there's the 39 melachot, the 39 creative activities that we engage in during the week, that we step back from during Shabbat. And the first, I think 13 of them, I have to check again, are about gardening. The whole first section is about gardening. And one of them is to clear all the stones out of the field. Right? So that they said, but that parallels, the Zohar explains how our mind is a field. Right? And if you plant a seed, it'll grow. But also, if you give it water, a lot of weeds will grow. So you have to learn how to take out the weeds, give it the proper nourishment, clear away the stones, plow it every once in a while, turn it over. Like, don't just, take things for granted. You have to plow, turn over before you plant the seed. Otherwise, you're just planting seeds in the wrong place, which is not going to grow. Right? Shlomo HaMelech, one of the also interesting wisdoms that he discovered is that he knew exactly which plant grows best where. And there's a Midreshet that explains how the source of all blessing in the world starts from Yerushalayim. Right? For example, the wheat, whether it actually survives in Russia or in Ukraine, wherever they grow a lot of wheat, in Canada, depends on if they're connected to their root in Yerushalayim. And he knew exactly where those roots were, so in Yerushalayim he was able to plant every single thing. Because nowadays, coffee, you can't really grow coffee in Israel, or cocoa. That's why coffee comes from like Brazil or Ethiopia. Like there's only certain places that they can grow. But he knew where that vein, so to speak, coming out of Yerushalayim was that went to those countries for coffee, and he planted a tree and coffee grew. Right, so that's why Yerushalayim in his days was like gorgeous. He had like every single tree, just really very interesting. Okay, so then. Okay, so then every single detail of our lives is already like set on the stage. Like why things happen to me specifically, it didn't happen to my neighbor. It's like, oh, how did he get so lucky? He doesn't have this, and I have this problem, and It's all to help us discover our true mission and to turn to Hashem. Like if you're not sure why you're experiencing something that doesn't make sense, so then you have to first look inside and see, did I do something that distracted me from being able to accept the blessing Hashem is trying to send me properly? Because Hashem is a father who wants to give everything to everyone constantly. Like I don't want to withhold certain things from one of my children. But if I see every time I give money to one of my kids and he goes out and like spends it on drugs, so then I'm going to hold back. Right? And then I'll give the other kid who spends it to buy musical instruments or whatever, to give tzedakah. So then it encourages me to want to give him more. So too, we need to ask ourselves, like when we're lacking things, but again, it's not 100%. We're going to see that there are other things besides just the way that we behave that determine what happens to us. Okay, so we're still in the introductory parts of it. Now, Al Kulam, so all of these different details and all of the individual humans, Hishkifa HaChochma HaElyona, Hashem gazes down upon us through the bigger picture, because again, the word Chochma means the bigger picture. Only Hashem sees everything, right? The more that we understand from the world, the more we're called wise, right? A wise man is not somebody who only knows mathematics, right? He might be a really smart mathematician, but you can't call him wise. He has to also know history and also know biology and also know music and all these different things. Okay, so the more that we are able to encompass in our vision of the world, so then we are called wise. So Chochmah Ha'Elyona means the ultimate and highest wisdom is when only Hashem has, because He can see everything constantly from beginning of time to the end of time, and every moment and every individual. Now, Kafi Amidat Mitziutam, and according to the true nature of their reality, Tigzor et Hayoter Naot v'Ha'agon. So Hashem, kind of like a cookie cutter, right? To remove all that's irrelevant, and He gives every single person exactly what is appropriate and fair for who they are and what their mission is. Okay, and this becomes clear if you just review the essential lessons that we learned in the previous chapters, that everything that happens to us, as we said before in a few classes ago, like whether a person is rich or poor, or healthy or strong or weak, is all predetermined to enable for a person to focus on their mission. Right? As it says, for example, we'll finish over here. Okay, good. Yeah, we've finished. Actually, this is. Yeah, we have to just read the next small little paragraph. So based on this root idea, whether a person is successful or in distress, right, uncomfortable here in this world, it's only as a challenge. Right? Hashem is challenging us to live up to our potential. And you have to realize that if it's happening to you, that means it suits you perfectly. It can't be any better. Right? You just have to learn from it and struggle through it. And we'll continue next week to understand that there are actually more reasons, which becomes a little bit more complex, but in a way that helps to clarify. So when we ask ourselves, why did this happen to me? To be able to have a satisfying answer that helps us be calm and continue the work that we need to be doing here in this world and not just get distracted and discouraged. Okay, so I guess we'll end here. There was a quick story I wanted to tell, but now I forgot what it was. So I guess it wasn't as relevant.
Sorry?
There was a short story I wanted to tell, but I don't remember what it was now.
Oh.
Yeah, because we read that extra paragraph, so we already got out of the previous paragraph. Let me see how the previous paragraph ended. Maybe we'll re-trigger it. Yes, now I remember. There was a question asked, why were all of the four mothers of Israel, right, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, born unable to have children? Right, they were all didn't have children until later on in life. And so I think this is from Strive for Truth, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, so he writes there, it's because the tzaddikim, when they realize something is missing in their life, they don't take it personally. They think about the entire world. They're like, if somebody's hungry, they don't ask Hashem for food. They ask, whoa, Hashem, why is there hunger in the world? So many people need food. Thank you for letting me remember that and realize that. Right? If somebody gets hurt or if somebody... so they said that because Hashem wanted the foremothers to pray for the world that nothing should interfere with babies coming down. Because people were abusing the sexuality in the world and they were dominating each other and doing all these things. And as we see actually that when Hashem listened to Sarah when she prayed, at that same moment, every single woman that couldn't give birth in the country suddenly was able to give birth. Right? So when Hashem answered her, he answered all of them also. And there's a concept like that we learned that if you notice that you need something in your life, find somebody else that needs it and pray for them. And then you'll get what you're asking for. If you're only focused on yourself, Hashem is like, well, you don't have it for a reason. Why should you change it? But to make you more sensitive, as for example, like during World War I, the Chafetz Chaim slept on the floor. He didn't sleep on his bed. And his children asked him, like, Abba, come on, you're getting old. You should sleep on a mattress. He says, no, how could I sleep on the floor when our brothers and sisters are out there fighting a war and dying? They're sleeping out in the mud and in the fields and on the rocks. He says, I need to be able to feel what they're going through so I can pray for them more intensely. And that's also why a lot of times Hashem Dafka makes the tzaddikim poor and ill, right? Because they use that to actually pray for others. And if you ask them, they say, no, we're not suffering. Like they don't even notice it. They don't take it personally. All right, that's a lot to strive for. We'll end on this note. But essentially to just, start being more aware, self-aware of how you react to things. That's what's called working on the midot. And that's why we have the time called Sfrat Omer to notice, and also to try to ask Hashem to help us correct all the negative ones and to strengthen the positive ones that we're not attached enough to. All right, Ad Kan, as they say in Hebrew.
Wow, that was very